Good morning, afternoon, or night, depending on what time you are watching this. This is Melanin Mindset, a show that focuses on mental well-being within the Black community. And today I'm joined by a special guest. Guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Estella Nelson. I am a wife, a mother, I'm a Christian. I'm also a senior leader in an alternative provision.
Right, okay, and we're here today to talk about a book that you have just released.
And I'm an author.
And you're an author. So just before we get to the book, how have you been over the past 15 months now, I guess?
Yeah, it's been quite a tough journey for me because over the period of sort of the lockdown, I've lost my mum. So that's part of the reason why the book sort of was written as well, as sort of a little bit of my grief project. But I definitely say we've come to the tail end of a better year. It feels a lot better. Just being able to set boundaries, being able to look after my own mental health and well-being as well over the past few months as well has been really sort of top priority for me.
Right, and would you say the book that you wrote was that like a coping mechanism for you?
Definitely. So the first title of the book is Resilience, and so sort of I went back to a point in my life where I had to be resilient, and actually realized that the season that I was in, it was tough, but I could get through it because I've been through other things before, and I've managed to get through it. So yeah, it was definitely to help me to cope and to process, to journey through the season I was in.
Right, okay. Right, so the book is called Resilience. I'm trying to remember the Endurance and Discovery. There you go. There you go. Show it again, please. The full thing, because I didn't really. Fantastic, brilliant. And when did you release this book? So
I released it in May. So I believe it was the 13th of May. It was published. The audiobook was published on the 17th of May. So yeah, just under a month ago, really.
And how long did it take you to write the whole thing?
Gosh, I started writing in December, and I finished writing in April-ish, actually probably around February, and then I started proofreading. And because I'm sort of a bit of a perfectionist, which I'm learning that perfectionism comes from some form of shame at some point in your life. So I've done 2 proof copies, and I thought, you know what, just let it go. Just it is what it is. Just let it go. So yeah, it took me, I'd say probably about 3 months to write, but actually just because I wanted it to be perfect, which there is no such thing as perfect, it took a little while for me to release it.
I mean, the book's got obviously a title which is 3 very powerful words: resilience, endurance, and discovery. What sort of, you kind of just explained resilience, but what was the thought process behind the title?
So the thought process was, well, it spells red, really, if you can see it. I don't know if my fingers are pointing, R-E-D, and red is my favorite color. But from that, actually, there are some things in terms of highlights in my life. So me being resilient, do you want me to go into it? Yeah.
Sell the book. Okay, so right now, you need to sell. I haven't got the book yet, right?
Yeah.
So I've got
Shame
it on
you.
I've got it on my basket, in my Amazon basket. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So right now, sell the book to me. And for those that's reading, listening, go ahead. This is your time.
Yeah. Okay. So without giving too much away, in 2005, I was in university, and it was a tough period of time. Was it 2005? Yeah, it was a tough period of time, 2005. And I'd fallen pregnant, and I had an option. I could give up, or I could push through. And I did my degree in Swansea. So actually, I was in a city that wasn't culturally diverse. And I knew in terms of my background coming from Jamaica, I've seen where people have failed and people have not picked things up when they've gone, oh yeah, I'll pick it back up in a year's time. I knew that couldn't be me. I knew I needed to continue. And so I chose to continue with my studies. I went into university. I was there the Wednesday. I had my daughter on the Sunday. And so that was a period of time where I had to be resilient. I had to push through. I had to realize actually I want to go on, I want to finish my degree, and I want to then become a teacher. So that was my 4 years journey of resilience. And then the endurance came through me actually getting a job in Bristol, and effectively went through what was sort of systematic racism, which I didn't realize. And the words that were spoken over me during that period of time was something that really held me captive. So, you know, Bob Marley talks about emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our mind. That period of time, I was told you can't compete with the caliber of people applying for this job. You're lovely, Estella, but you can't compete with the caliber of people applying for this job. And that sort of just ricocheted in my head over and over and over for years. And so I was in that job for 5 years, just enduring. I mean, crying in the toilets, praying in the toilets. But what I then realized was that was a part of my learning process. And so the discovery then came when I moved to another school, and everybody was going, "Oh, you're amazing, Estella." And I'm going, who are you talking to? Me? Amazing. And there was just this one assistant principal. She said to me, just outside her office, just casually one day, "Do you know you could be a head teacher one day?" And I just started bawling. Like, it wasn't, she didn't see it coming, I didn't see it coming, but it was moving from the you can't compete with a caliber to somebody saying, "Oh, you could be ahead." And this was within first few months of me being in this new school. And I just thought, what a huge difference. And that's when my discovery process came in, and which is why you've got resilience, endurance, discovery. And it's a journey to shattering glass ceilings, because that glass ceiling of me not being able to compete with a caliber, that word, that caliber of people, the people who are the elitists, the people who are up there, like you can't compete with them. So there's that glass ceiling that was put over me that I held in place as well, because I believed it. I truly believed it, to the point where when people would say to me, "You are amazing. Oh, I'm going to bring some people in from other schools to come and see what you're doing, see your differentiation, to see this, to see that," and I'd be going, "What, me? Are you sure? Because are you sure they're going to be able to see the caliber of things you want them to see?" And so that glass ceiling, through discovering who I truly was and my purpose within that school, and actually what I could do and who I could become, and also representing the blackness within me to the students who were there, meant that I could then shatter that glass ceiling for the next generation. And that was so powerful to me. But I definitely had a community. I definitely had a tribe around me. I don't know if anybody's heard of Woman Ed. If you're watching this later on, Woman Ed is a fantastic community of women. They had lots of conferences, which that assistant head teacher sort of she invited me to a lot of these conferences, and I sort of gained in confidence to the point where she found an opportunity for me to speak in an International Women's Day. And that was fantastic. So it's, if you are somebody who is going through anything and you're in the teaching profession, Woman Ed is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic.
Woman's Ed, is it?
Woman Ed.
Woman
Yeah,
Ed.
they're on Twitter as well.
Okay. I mean, it's amazing as you're talking, and what's coming to me is the power of words. And
Totally.
you hear the saying, speaking life into people, and you could also speak death as well.
Absolutely.
It depends on what we absorb as people, and being told you're not at the caliber is something that was a weight on you, and then somebody saying to you, you can be head, you can be head mistress. And it's like, wait, what?
Like, what? Who are you talking to?
But that's speaking life, that's speaking encouragement, and that is so important, especially for young people as well. I've seen, testimonies of people that are in, when I was in school, somebody told me I could be my teacher told me I could be a writer. That's what led me to being a writer. It's so simple, but they only needed to hear that once, and that was enough.
Absolutely.
But you got the same, on the flip side, you could say, you're not going to amount to anything, and the person absorbs that, and they just think like, well, what's the point? What's the point if you even try? So yeah, it is really important. Now, you've had the book out since, what did you say, the 13th of May?
Yes.
Okay, and have you had any type of feedback so far?
Yes, I've had some reviews on Amazon, so it is only on Amazon. So I've had quite a few feedback on Amazon. People have talked about how it's empowering, how it's uplifting, how it's an aspirational story, and it goes beyond race. So just making that really clear, it is a shared story. One of the things that I talk about in the back of the book, I'll just read it. I've said, what is a story you hold deep on the inside of you? Glass ceilings are often erected by an external factor, but perhaps it's worth considering that its stability and steadfastness is held in place by us. We have to choose to relinquish its hold in our lives and smash it. Smash it, kicking and screaming if we need to. Smash it to empower the next generation. Smash it through fear and gritted teeth. Let's be giants on whose shoulders others stand. Resilience, endurance, discovery. If you've ever dared to dream, it's your story too. And what I'm finding is a lot of people can relate to the story because they've experienced something. They have experienced seasons in their lives where they needed that community. That's the other thing I've learned only last year. Resilience isn't just you on your own trying to make it. Resilience actually is a community. And what that looks like is somebody ringing you and praying with you, or ringing you and going, oh, do you know what, you're okay? Do you need somebody to talk to you, or do you want to come out for a walk? Or that's how you become resilient, is actually having that tribe and that community around you. And it took me last year to realize that. And then it brought me back to something that I wrote in the book where it says, I don't know if you know this when you were growing up, no man is an island, no man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me. Each man's joy is my own. We need one another, so I will defend. Each man as my brother, each man as my friend. I might have misquoted that, but it's that concept that actually to be resilient and to push forward, it takes a community, it takes a tribe, it takes everybody supporting each other to get there. So yeah, the feedback has been around that sort of basically what we've just talked about, really, and just on getting people to realize that actually they can aspire to be so much more, they can dream, and they don't have to be limited by other people's words. It's our own mindset, because we are the curators of our destinies. So we have to break free of everything, every negative word that people have spoken over us.
Wow, powerful. That's powerful. You mentioned 2005, you're in uni, and then you fell pregnant. Was it in 2005, you said?
2005, yes.
Okay, so explain to me the sort of process, because I'm hearing you talk about, the community and support, basically. I want to know, what was it like at that time? Was it more support? Was it a lot of judgment? How did you feel going through that process?
So growing up in the church is a lot of judgment, because one, I wasn't married. My husband and I eventually got married in just before our daughter was born. So yeah, there was a lot of judgment, but in terms of my school community and university, I felt really supported. So I mentioned it in my book. I wouldn't have made it if it hadn't been for my university friends, who actually said, oh, this assignment is due. This is a reading that you need to do. My uni teachers, my lecturers, they're amazing. So they would give me extensions if I needed it. They would signpost me to places that I need to go to get references, for example. And they were really, I wouldn't say lenient, but they were really understanding in terms of where I was and the fact that I wanted to complete, I wanted to finish. So I would say I was definitely supported by the people who were around me in that period of time. And of course, my mum and my sister as well.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, because I know you mentioned being in the church and that, and I was alluding to that. Was there judgment?
Yeah.
How much was there? So how did you feel at the time of judgment? I'll tell you why I'm asking that, because I know it's very common to get judged, but I don't want to use the term done my research, but I do the maths, basically, and I don't judge people. I don't. But a lot of times when you grow up in church, or you go to the churches, you do the maths and you realize, oh, okay, so you weren't born within wedlock. You weren't born within wedlock. You know what I mean? But the judgment is still there.
Yeah.
Generation, it's like, well, a lot of you lot went through the same thing. So,
Yeah.
how
And you should be encouraging me rather than judging me, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly that. I mean, did you have any of those conflicts at all? Those clashes?
Definitely. definitely. And I was 20 at the time, so I was quite feisty. So my mom used to say, "D, you gonna go to?" Because my pet name is Dion. So, D, you gonna go to church? Yeah, I'm going to church, because there are other people who are sinning, but you can't see their sin. You've just seen mine. So I'm gonna go to church.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing, because obviously culturally, mom was just trying to protect me.
Yeah.
From what people would say, really, because that's how she was brought up as well. So there was a lot of judgment in the church, and one of the things that I've spoken to my pastor about since, and we've talked it through, because what I don't want to see is for other women to go through the same thing, because unfortunately you will always see when there's a baby coming, but you won't see everybody else's sin, and that's where women get judged quite a lot. And it's not Christ-like, is it?
It's funny because
it's not love.
Women get judged a lot, right? And it's true, but the fathers don't get judged as much. Don't know.
Not as much, no.
The fathers, if a father, if a guy's in the church and he gets a girl pregnant, he won't get that same wrath, but the woman will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is
cool. But I think for me, you've got to figure out where you are with God, and I'm a firm believer in there's no condemnation. It took me years to go through that, and actually the breakthrough for me came in our now bishop she came into church, and she said, just, does Jesus care when I've tried and failed? An old hymnal song. Does Jesus care when I've tried and failed to resist some temptation strong? And the chorus says, oh yes, he cares. I know he cares. His heart is touched with my grief. And that just broke me, because that's where I had the release of, actually, there is truly no condemnation, because I've been seen by God. I shouldn't care about what man thinks. Yes, you're disappointed. You can be disappointed, but actually, I'm still a child of God. I am still his. I'm still loved. I'm still called by him. He's still going to use me. So you didn't die on Calvary's cross for me. Jesus did. So what I've done is upset him. I'm not quite sure why you're taking it on that much, because you didn't die for me. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I had to get to be able to live free. And it's really sad, but that's where I had to get to really live free, in knowing that actually this child is such a blessing in God's hand. And I had to accept that she was going to be born, whether people liked it or not. And that was that. Yeah.
When you were in uni, so just remind me, what were you studying again?
So I was studying English with film and TV studies, with major being English, and then the year after I did my PGC, my teacher training.
Okay, so did you always know you wanted to be a teacher, or was that something that developed later?
Yeah, no, always wanted to be a teacher from the age of about 9. You need to go and get the book. Yes, from about the age of 9, I would hold Saturday classes on my parents' veranda. And I would, in Jamaica, you could beat back then. So I would be beating my sister. She's only a year and a half younger than me, Patrice. So she's a year and a half younger than me. I'd be beating her and have other friends on the veranda as well. I loved spelling, so that's what I teach. So I thought I was really good at it. But obviously in Jamaica as well, you've got the culture of you fear your teacher, like you're really frightened of your teacher. So you do well. And also your parents pay for your education. So you go to school to do well because they're paying for it. So yeah, those are the things that I was like, oh, I'm in control. I'm quite a person who's quite feared and revered, and obviously people listen to me. So yeah, that's definitely what I wanted to go into.
So was that what led you to want to be a teacher? Was it a time in your life where you said, I want to be feared?
Yeah, definitely. And I was in control, totally.
Right, okay. And what is it? And so are you a head mistress now, or is that the aim?
So I'm a centre lead. So I work for an alternative provision. So I run my own centre. Okay. So yeah, so the aim is to be a head teacher one day.
Right, okay. And is it predominantly like English that is that your main core thing that you like to teach?
Yes, English is my subject. So that's why I teach. although
Right.
I'm not so much in the classroom these days. So I currently teach 1 day of English.
Right. And you said that you did film and TV studies. Have you ever had any plans to sort of do a visualization of the book of any sort?
I haven't thought of that, but we can talk after this. See what that looks like. No, I haven't thought about it. I've thought about an audiobook, but I haven't thought
Right.
about sort of a visualization of it. No.
Okay. So you wrote a book and it took you around 3 months, you said. Obviously before you wrote the book, you had to decide to write a book. What books have you read any books that motivated you and inspired you? And if so, what were they?
Any books that have motivated me or inspired me? Trying to think, there are so many books that I've read. I love To Kill a Mockingbird. I think the story behind that is still current today, unfortunately. But yeah, it talks about the marginalized, talks about the segregated. So I really like To Kill a Mockingbird. I quite like The Alchemist as well, which is interesting. I think I'm more motivated by poetry, if I'm to be honest. So I do like reading books, but poetry is mainly my thing. So for example, Marianne Williamson, her poem, which I'm forgetting. Give me 1 minute, because I've quoted it as well. Our deepest fear. She talks about our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Yeah, so she says it's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. And it goes on. It talks about your playing small does not serve the world. And also, I really like Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. I also like her I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. I like The Colour Purple. So quite a lot of cultured books, I think. Yeah.
And talking about that, talking about culture, I just want to go back to when you mentioned systematic racism, and you mentioned, unfortunately, things like To Kill a Mockingbird still relevant today. Within the past year, things like George Floyd and countless other situations that have happened around race. What responsibility do you think the educational system has? That's the field that you're in. So what responsibility do you think there is there?
I think it has a huge responsibility to educate children. One of the conversations actually that I had with my staff team, so last Friday we had an inset day, and I was saying to everybody, oh, look at my tan, because I actually had a tan. But I like to do that because it opens up conversation. So basically I had a t-shirt on, so this bit of my arm is a little bit light, I don't know if you can see it, so there's a line there where the rest is darker, and they were just like, is this okay to talk about? And I just said, well, yes, it is, because at the end of the day, if we're doing this as adults, what are the kids doing? So the kids won't have conversations, and it's because they're not being educated. I've had a student who's told me that it's okay for him to use the N-word with his mates. So black kids, it's okay to use the N-word with his mates. And I'm saying, well, no, it's not, because what you're doing is you're effectively legalizing it. You're saying this is okay to say. It's a derogatory term. You shouldn't be using it. And so it's just continually having those conversations. They are sometimes difficult conversations. People don't know how to have them, but I think we are responsible for educating young people. Otherwise, we are going to have a society going back to Martin Luther King's days or Rosa Parks, you know what I mean? And we're then not moving forward. We are not setting the generation up to be successful. If you look at 2 children who are black and white, they will go out and they will play until an adult interrupts that. And I think it's Nelson Mandela who said no man was born hating one another. And so I think we do have a huge responsibility, particularly there's this new buzz now around equality or equity. Equality, I think it is, diversity and inclusion. And so we, as well as educating ourselves as adults, we definitely have a responsibility to educate the children. Things like knowing the different nationalities that are within our schools are really important. Putting flags around the place, trying to figure out what's culturally relevant to them. and learning from each other's cultures, I think, is really important. That's a basic that we can actually do to support our young people. And just normalizing conversations. If they get something wrong, tell them they get it wrong, not to say that word. It's not okay to do this. This is how somebody will feel if you say that. And I think by doing so, you will eradicate the sort of the sense of the other. But actually, we're all human beings. We are a diverse society. We work in a diverse society. And it's given them the tools to be able to access that. In regards to the systematic racism, whilst I was in it, I did not know. So literally just come from Jamaica. I'd been here for, I think, 6 years. Everybody I'd met, so I had friends in uni of variety of cultures, race, creed, like everybody was fine. So actually, I did not know what it was. And it wasn't until leaving 5 years later that I was told it was systematic racism. And I just went, what do you mean? What is that? And so what that shows me is that it is so subtle. And I've heard this said in comedy lots of times, that British racism is so subtle that you don't see it happening. Absolutely. And that's where I was. I moved to my school. I was only the sort of the last school that I went to discover myself. And I was the only Black female teacher there. And one of my students said to me, Miss, how do you feel walking into meetings, being the only Black female teacher? And I just went, I don't feel any way about it. And I think that was the first time in my time in schools where I didn't notice that I was the only Black female, which was powerful in itself, because you always felt like the other, but within this school, I didn't. I felt like I was respected as another member of staff. I felt I was given lots of opportunities. Like my succession in that school, I started there as an NQT. So in my previous school, I wasn't able to do my NQT year because I wasn't of that caliber. But I could do one-to-one tuition. I could help the English team. I could get the results skyrocketing, kids coming in to see me before school, after school, etc. But I couldn't complete my NQT, which is newly qualified teacher year. So in my school where I discovered myself, I was able to do that. I was second in department within that year. I then went into pastoral roles, and from there I was able to then move to the job I'm currently in. So I think there's a huge disparity within our education system, and you can see it where people of color are not, or Black, Asian, minority, ethnic groups are not striving in particular areas. And it is because there is that systematic racism. And it is sad to say that we are still back in those days where there isn't equality or equity, or whichever word suits us in this season. But there isn't that diversity. And yes, you want to take people on their merit in terms of what they can offer to the school. But if there is nobody there to represent to the young girls who asked me, how do you feel going into that room with lots of white people? It's because they've never seen a Black female teacher in their school before. So what does representation look like to them? What are they striving to achieve? What are they striving to be? If they can't see somebody of their own skin color who can be something better. So that for me is really worrying. It's part of the reason why I'm still in education, actually, because it is tough work.
Totally agree. Representation does matter a lot, and you are a big influence, and you will be, whether you realize it or not. You are going to be a big influence on young people when they see you. You step into a classroom as a Black teacher, you've got a little Black girl. She may have not seen a Black teacher before. Oh, it's possible. All she needs to do is see you. It's the same with like even fictional things like superheroes, and having Black superheroes to the young Black kids. It's like, oh, okay, Black superheroes could be a thing. Obviously, superheroes aren't real, but it's still that imagination, isn't it? When we were young, we looked up to Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and whoever. And then when Black Panther comes out as a movie, although the character has been around for years, he wasn't really that well known. Kids loved it. It's like, oh, Black Panther, and he's in Africa, and representation is very important. When a few years back, I believe it was 2010, 11, around that time, I was volunteering, and I was like a peer educator, and I was asked to be a part of a steering group, and they needed to come up with an idea to do some sort of scheme in schools. So I came up with this idea called Why I Respect. It's actually on a short video on YouTube. I could find it, but anyway. And I was teaching year 9 pupils, me and another person. It was all about them discovering other cultures. So they had to research other cultures, different cultures, find out something about another culture that you respect, something that you didn't know that has led you to be intrigued and to respect that culture more. So they were doing that, and then what we did after that is we taught them how to do filming, and they went around St. Mark's Road in Houston. And they spoke, and they went in and they interviewed people. They interviewed the people at the Sweet Mart. They interviewed the barbers. They interviewed a bunch of people, the whole road actually. And they also went into the Chinese supermarket in Eastville and filmed in there and interviewed around there, just to get a sense of diversity, you know. And it was just great seeing these young people really get excited about learning about different cultures. And I think that's one thing that in British society we do, we take from other cultures, as in like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a cheeky curry tonight, or I'm gonna, it's like food wise, yeah, that's fine, or but in terms of respecting those people, it's not as bold, it's not as welcomed, so I've seen people go into shops purchasing something, but be disrespectful to the Indian guy behind the counter. And I'm like, you're going into his shop. You clearly require something. He's providing you.
Yeah.
but you want to be disrespectful and say all this and that to the people. So I think it's a mindset as well. A lot of it is a mindset that needs to be revamped and reformed. And educated. I think there's a saying, we perish for lack of knowledge. So it's just good to know, like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know this and didn't know that. When I was in university, I found out that I think it was St. George was actually Turkish.
I didn't know that.
This I studied media at university, and a girl had made a documentary about this particular area in England, a very racist area, actually. And she'd been around. She was just interviewing people, finding out what they think about all the, they were just being very, very racist in their opinions. But at the end of it, there was actually a statement that said, yeah, St. George was actually Turkish. So you think about things like that, like, oh, yeah, okay. So sometimes we just need to educate ourselves. We just need to go out.
Absolutely.
To educate ourselves. So I'm just gonna to bring it to a close. In terms of your book, somebody that's deciding to possibly pick up this book, what message do you have to them to make them make that decision and go and get it?
I think for me, I want people to learn from my story. I want them to see actually that everything is possible. I quoted Bob Marley in the start, and I'll do it again. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Honestly, I think the moment you start believing things that people have said over you, you've just held yourself captive. And then that puts all sorts of glass ceilings above us, which we can't break through because we truly hold on to those things which are lies. And in the book, one of the things that I've written, I just said, what lie have you believed about yourself? So somebody has said something, what lie have you believed? And actually, you've got to start to think about, actually, I need to delete those negative words. I'm just going to show you something. I don't know if you can see it there, but it says, don't you dare live a life capped by someone else's expectations or negative words. And you can see I put a line through negative words. And I did that because it almost is a prophetic act. Actually, you're choosing to cross out those negative words, and you're choosing to rise above. So I'm hoping that throughout my story, people will be able to be liberated they will realize that actually maybe I've got a book in me too. Maybe I've got a story to tell, because there is something so powerful in a shared story. And just recognize the people around you who are your community, who are pushing you further. One of the things that I had a coach actually mentioned in the book, my coach, and she said, because in my head I'm thinking, oh, I still haven't done it yet. She said, you've done it, Estella. You've done it with bells on. And for me, that was just uplifting to hear somebody else say to me, I've recognized in you that you've done this thing. So I think we beat ourselves up so much because of a negative word that's spoken over us, and we have to push beyond that. We have to choose to be better than all of those words that have been spoken over us, and recognize that we curate our destiny. We can choose the words we want to speak over ourselves and get rid of those negative words, cross them out, put a line through them, and move on.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And just to clarify, this is a book for everyone. This isn't just a female only thing or a black only
No,
thing.
it's no, it's for absolutely everyone. And the foreword is written by a good friend of mine who's a head teacher. She is the assistant principal, or was the assistant principal, who said to me, you can be a head teacher. She's now a head teacher. So I would encourage you, it is the little excerpt that I put on Amazon. So I would encourage you to go and read that if you are making a decision about whether or not you want to buy it. But it is a book for everybody. It is a true story. It is a life book. It's the ups and downs of actually trying to be all that you want to be. And I just truly believe that we all have a story to tell, and that is to encourage somebody.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your insight and for being open with this book as well. I'm going to purchase it. I'm going to buy it. And I look forward to reading it, and I encourage anyone else who's watching this to purchase it as well. Is there any last things you want to say? Any last messages? Any last plugs that you want to put out there?
No, there are no last words for me, apart from we all have a story to share. So I believe resilience, endurance, and discovery is a story for all of us, because at some point in our lives we would have been resilient, we would have enjoyed something, we would have discovered something new about ourselves. And we start that process, it's almost cyclical actually, so we do that process often. So I think, go out, buy it, see what you think, and leave a review on Amazon.
Buy the book. Well, for those that's been watching, this has been Melanin Mindset. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Peace.
Thank you.